is AEW Unrestricted. I am Will Washington. I am joined by Aubrey Edwards. How you doing,
Hello.
Aubrey?
I'm good. Hey, Mr. Statsman, a pay-per-view's coming up. What number pay-per-view is it?
Oh, you know what?
Oh, don't look it up. Don't look at your computer.
I don't know, actually. Yeah, I know,
What?
I know. The funny thing
How
was
do I
because I
know
had
this
it right
and
in
you
front of
don't?
me. Yeah, I actually don't know.
It's 29.
Is it 29?
I think it's 29 because I think Double or Nothing was 28.
Okay. All right. That's
I like that you're just blindly believing me.
sure.
I could have said it was
believe that.
37, but you were like, whatever.
But
Anyway,
I'll be honest.
happy
like,
29th pay-per-view.
Look, in the era of like 4 pay-per-views a year, I like always had the count. But then it was like once we increased, But you know what? That's a good thing. It's a good thing that we've increased the amount of opportunities for people, and Forbidden Door is another one of those opportunities. And by the way, happy Pride Month.
Yes.
I realized right before this show that I hadn't gotten to wear this shirt on the show yet, and I realized I had to do it. So here we are.
It was one of those, like, Speedy did a bunch of Pride photo shoot stuff with the LGBTQ talent backstage, and I just got a photo earlier this week that I posted. I was like, oh, June's almost over.
Yeah.
Like, almost forgot. Not like you can't celebrate Pride all year long, but there's something about doing it in June in particular.
Right, exactly. And like I said, it was one of those, I've worn this shirt on the show pretty much all year, but I realized, I have not worn it in Pride Month, and I should wear it. So here we
I
are.
wore the Forbidden Door shirt.
That's a dope shirt. I have that shirt in a drawer, and I was thinking about pulling that out, and I thought, I bet you Aubrey's going to wear it, so therefore I should not. But Forbidden Door, it's an incredible time every year. This is the 3rd Forbidden Door. That stat I've got correct. And I've been at every Forbidden Door. Look at that. If you're watching the video version, the poster from the first one's right here. But it is a co-production of New Japan Pro Wrestling and All Elite Wrestling. It is the one time a year that we get to come together to put the show together. But for the first time, we also have other promotions joining in the fold as well. We've got some representation from Stardom. We've got representation from CMLL. This is going to be an awesome show. I'm really looking forward to it. And I think there's no better way to start off talking about this card than actually with the AEW World Championship, which I know some people have looked at this match and gone, now wait a second, this is 2 AEW guys. We're talking about the AEW World Championship being defended. AEW's World Champion Swerve Strickland defending the title against AEW International Champion Will Ospreay. But when you think about Forbidden Door, there is only one man who I think truly embodies the Forbidden Door, and that is Will Ospreay. He is the Forbidden Door. When you think about the first Forbidden Door, this man stealing the show with Orange Cassidy. And how can Will Ospreay actually steal the show when the show almost belongs to him 90% of the time? But at the same time, there was so much else on that card that nobody was expecting that match to be the match. And that was one of my matches of the year in 2022. And then last year, of course, the expected rematch with Kenny Omega. And we knew they were going to deliver, and those guys tore the house down. Forbidden Door belongs to Will Ospreay. And I can't think of a better person to represent Forbidden Door in the main event than as the challenger for the AEW World Championship. But he's got his hands full against a world champion who's really just getting started in Swerve Strickland here at Forbidden Door. I think this match is going to be amazing. These two have so much history together. And, I mean, you go back almost 10 years with these guys. They've wrestled up and down the independent scene. They are legitimately very close friends. And, this was one of those matches that I think everybody knew they were going to see at some point. I don't think Forbidden Door was what people were expecting, and yet here it is right in front of us, one of the biggest matches, if not the biggest match AEW could offer at this point. Aubrey, how are you feeling about Will Ospreay and Swerve Strickland?
I think what I feel going into this match is I have no idea who's going to win. Like, we've seen Swerve Strickland be a completely dominant champion. He was dominant in the ring prior to becoming champion. Like, just his match with Hangman will forever be like seared in my brain in a loving way, despite, all the blood everywhere. But at the same time, has Will Ospreay lost a match since he joined AEW officially?
No, he has not.
Exactly. So it's like, this could go either way.
But Swerve Strickland has not been pinned this year either. And so
that's true. That's true. And part of it too is that Like, we've seen Swerve Strickland in AEW for a long time, but we've also seen Will Ospreay in AEW before he was a part of AEW. Like, Will Ospreay, before he even worked for us, was wrestling at Wembley.
Yes.
He is the true epitome of Forbidden Door, because any door that's there, Will Ospreay's like, hey, bruv, I'm going to just walk through it. Like, he's that guy. But the person that is going to win in this match is the AEW fandom, the New Japan fandom. Anyone watching this match, they're going to win, because this is going to be incredible.
Absolutely. I can't think of... I can't think really of a better main event for Forbidden Door. I think that when, one of the things Swerve talked about was the fact that he was on the 0 hours of the first two Forbidden Doors, that he didn't get to participate in the main card of either show. And meanwhile, Will Ospreay was the guy at both Forbidden Doors, and Swerve spent the last year really building himself up and getting to the point of becoming the AEW World Champion. And now he's got the chance to not just be on the Forbidden Door card, but he's in the main event defending the AEW World Championship. But it's against a guy who has been making a very strong name for himself in AEW. And he just won the International Championship. The question of can he carry the weight of both worlds on his shoulders, that's a thing that's in question, but we at least physically saw when he snatched the belt from Swerve just a couple weeks ago that he at least believes he can. And I think the AEW fans believe it.
There's very few wrestlers in this world where they could be a part of a company for just a handful of months and already win one belt and conceivably win the biggest title at the company. And yes. Will Ospreay is that guy. Without question. Like, it makes sense on paper, it makes sense on billboards, it makes sense everywhere. But at the same time, Swerve Strickland is just an absolute dominant wrestler. And this match is going to be incredible.
Absolutely is. Also on the card, by the way, last month we saw a really unfortunate injury at Double or Nothing, in which we saw Adam Copeland, the former TNT champion, sustained an injury inside a steel cage match with Malachi Black. And as a result of that injury, he had to vacate the TNT championship. So we have...
Well, no. He did not vacate. The executive vice presidents, Matthew and Nicholas Jackson, forced him to vacate the title. Let's give credit where it's due, because Adam was a wonderful champion.
Yes, absolutely. He was a phenomenal champion. I think that what he was doing with that belt, the run he was on with that belt, nothing short of incredible. And I also
just don't want to get fined, so I want to make sure that our executive vice presidents are, the work that they do for us is properly attributed.
Yes, very true. And so what's interesting is with the belt being vacant, and it's very rarely been in that situation. We've rarely ever had belts vacated in AEW. They have been, but it's very rare that we've seen that happen. And so this introduces an incredibly unique situation for AEW, and we've got to crown a new TNT champion. And the field in this match is made for ladder matches. When you think about Mark Briscoe and some of the ladder warfares he's had with his brother, and when you think about guys like Dante Martin, a man who made a name for himself in ladder matches. He's extreme high flyer. He also sustained an injury in a ladder match, and I think has something to prove here. You think about Leo Rush, somebody who, again, is extremely fast-paced, fast-moving. He's got so much speed and agility that it is almost tailor-made for being a part of a ladder match. But then you've got Konosuke Takeshita. And Konosuke Takeshita, has he's got the strength, he's got the size, he's got the power, and that is something that you want to see in a ladder match. But he's also got that speed and agility as well, that also lends itself to a ladder match. Then you've got Jack Perry, a guy who also not a stranger to ladder matches, not a stranger to ladder matches in AEW, and a man who was about to be handed the TNT Championship until Christopher Daniels stepped in and made sure that that wasn't going to happen. But when you think about all of these guys combined, this, to me, makes for the perfect combination for a ladder match in AEW.
So as a fan, I love ladder matches because you get all these different guys who have different wrestling styles and different backgrounds, different histories, whether or not they've crossed paths. And you basically just throw them in a hardware store combined with a wrestling ring, and all hell breaks loose. And it's fantastic. As a referee, I am not a fan because they are brutal. They are awful. I have seen horrible things happen close in because people are fighting literally for their lives with hardware. And it's not that it's one thing to say like someone really, really wants a title, but I think we see that primal nature of wanting to get that title when you have a situation like a ladder match. And I think it does something in people and it brings out a different side of each of these competitors. Like, I love Mark Briscoe. He's loving, kind-hearted, wonderful guy. The moment you throw him in a ladder match, he's a sicko. Like, you're in for it. Like,
Man, I am so excited for this one. It's I think it's one of those matches that most would look at and feel is incredibly difficult to call. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think any one of these guys has made their case for becoming TNT champion. And no, I think it's an exciting time, and I think this is going to be one of those matches that probably goes out of its way to steal the show. And I think every one of these guys has something to prove here. Another match happening on this card that, part of the allure of Forbidden Door is the dream match, the match that people didn't think we could see. And so when I think about dream matches and when I think about the run that Shingo has been on in New Japan Pro Wrestling for just this not just the last year, but really in the last few years. But especially this year, the run that Shingo's been on. And to know that in Bryan Danielson's final year as a full-time professional wrestler, Bryan Danielson steps in the ring with Shingo in a match in the opening round of the Owen Hart Foundation Cup tournament. One of these men will be going on to the second round on a quest to main event AEW All In Wembley. Bryan Danielson, look, he has been killing it this year. But as he mentioned, in his path of killing it, he hasn't exactly been winning. That, when you look at his first pay-per-view match of the year, he faced Eddie Kingston for the Continental Championship, did not secure the victory. At Dynasty, he faced Will Ospreay in one of the best matches AEW has ever seen, but he did not get the victory. Anarchy in the Arena was just that. It was anarchy. Team AEW, the Elite, head-to-head in a match that Bryan Danielson extremely familiar with. But he did not get the victory. And at this point, Bryan Danielson has everything to lose going forward. This is not how Bryan Danielson wants his career in AEW to end. And he has a goal of making it to All In. He has a goal of making it to Wembley and becoming the AEW World Champion. But in order to do that, he has to get through Shingo.
It's kind of shocking that we're almost a year after. I can't remember exactly. You probably know the exact time and place that it happened. But when Bryan said this was his last year as a full-time wrestler,
that was last October. Weird. Yeah,
there you go. It's we're coming up on that year now, and I think all of us are kind of looking at this going, oh no. Like each time we see Bryan wrestle now, like this might be the last time that he wrestles in that state. I was actually just talking to my friends this past weekend when they came up to Everett. They're like, yeah, Bryan gave a speech at the end of the show. Like, and I kind of explained the whole thing. Like, they're very casual wrestling fans, but to know what this kind of means to Bryan's career, like there's so much happening in this match. There's just Bryan, who he is as a wrestler, who he means to wrestling in general. There's the chance to main event All In Wembley. There's the fact that there's the opening match for the Owen Hart Cup tournament, which is an incredible, incredible partnership that we have with the Owen Hart Foundation. There's so much in this that it's easy to lose sight of this one pure moment of, oh, this might be the last time we get to see Bryan wrestle as a full-time wrestler in New York. It's kind of crazy.
And one of the things is, we're talking so much about Bryan, but also Shingo. Again, talking about what Shingo has been able to accomplish here in AEW. and not just in AEW, sorry, but what he's been able to accomplish in New Japan Pro Wrestling this year, I think has been nothing short of remarkable. An incredible match with Gabe Kidd just about a month and a half ago. He has been doing some incredible work. I think Shingo was on one of the best runs of his career, and to be in there with Bryan Danielson, I think is a dream match that so many people didn't think they'd get to see. And it was on a lot of people's fantasy cards. You would see like, oh, when Bryan Danielson works New Japan, who would you like to see him wrestle? And like Shingo was one of those names you just kept seeing. And for Shingo to have the opportunity to face Bryan Danielson, possibly beat Bryan Danielson, and to get to move on to the second round and possibly get to also go to Wembley. I mean, that's a dream scenario as well. This is one of those matches that, again, this is what Forbidden Door is all about. This is why we have Forbidden Door. You get to see some incredible face-to-face matchups that you possibly would not ever get to see. This is an exciting time.
It's great. And I love all the weeks leading up to Forbidden Door and introducing all these amazing talent to our fan base. Like, I got to work with Shingo when he faced AR Fox on Rampage, which was just not really being super familiar with Shingo, having seen some of his stuff, but then seeing him beat the living shit out of AR Fox up close, I'm like, oh, this match with Bryan's going to be real good.
Yes, it is. And we've got so much more Forbidden Door to talk about. It's happening this Sunday live. It is in Elmont, New York City. It is, I guess, technically Long Island, however you want to look at that. But on Long Island, you want to be there. UBS Arena, AEWTix.com is the way to be in the house for this show. But you also don't want to miss it from the couch of your home, the center of your home, however you decide to watch it on your mobile device. However you're going to watch the show, you want to watch the show. It's available on traditional pay-per-view. It's available on ppv.com. It's available on Bleacher Report. It's available on YouTube. Any way you can watch this show. And also Triller as well. Any way you can watch this show, you should be a part of it. Forbidden Door, it's this Sunday. We've got so much more to talk about right here when AEW Unrestricted continues. AEW Unrestricted. It's Aubrey and Will. We're talking Forbidden Door, which is live this Sunday. It's traditional pay-per-view. It is Bleacher Report. It is Triller. It is ppv.com. It is YouTube. It is live at UBS Arena, AEWTix.com. You want to be there. We're talking about the card. And in talking about the card, we got to be talking about the AEW Women's World Championship on the line.
Yes.
Toni Storm defending the belt against a woman who I believe has been taking the world, no pun intended, by storm.
By storm.
And I think she has been, everybody who comes across Mina Shirakawa, I think just falls in love from the standpoint of she just commands the screen in a way that I don't think a lot of people understood that she had the ability to, unless you were a Stardom fan. I don't think you were necessarily of a full understanding of what she brought to the table. But a big part of Mina's story, of course, is the fact that she is a part of the group E-Nexus V, which also had a previous name, Club Venus, and another member of Club Venus was one Mariah May. And Mariah May, now the protege of Toni Storm. I appreciate that the graphic for this has Mariah in both corners, because at the end of the day, she is tied. She is tied to both. She is very loyal to Mina Shirakawa, but at the same time, Toni Storm has very much taken a liking to Mariah May and has taken her under her wing in a way that, over these last 8 months,
under her wing, on her bosom, it's all kind of awkward.
And for the AEW Women's World Championship to be on the line here, this was a match that I remember when it was first hinted at. It was back in April at the Stardom show, and yes, in Philadelphia.
In Philly.
Yes, in Philly, and we saw a reunion of our Club Venus members of Mina Shirakawa and Mariah May, and then out came Toni Storm, and Toni Storm talked about a forbidden door possibly being open, and that crowd erupted. They knew exactly what they wanted to see. They wanted to see Mina Shirakawa taking on Toni Storm for the AEW Women's World Championship, and to get to see this match now. And again, it all comes down to me, I believe, where Mariah May's loyalties lie.
It's always interesting having, that third person on the outside, right? But Mariah is friends with both of these competitors. And this is such a unique situation where, as you kind of said, like there's history with Mina, but who Mariah is now and all of the acclaim that she's getting now is 100% due to Toni Storm. And it's not lost on Mariah. She understands that there's, connection with both of them. But at the same time, like, everybody loves Mina. Like, now that she's been around our locker room enough, I'm like, oh yeah, no, it's cool. I could see her as my champion. This is fine. I get it. But at the same time, I watch these Toni Storm promos where she is just losing her mind a little bit more every week. And the idea of Toni Storm one day not being women's champion makes me sad because I'm just so entertained by this iteration of Toni Storm. She's so fantastic. So independent of the actual wrestling, because we didn't talk about the wrestling aspect, we're just talking about like who they are as people. Like every time you have all three of these on screen, it's just, there's so much charisma, there's so much love, there's so much sex appeal, there's so much everything. And it's so unique to any other match on the card. I'm so thrilled about this matchup.
One of the things that I think is really cool here is the fact that it's a full circle moment for so many people involved. If you've been following Toni Storm's career a very long time, then there's a good chance you were introduced to her in Stardom, in that she wrestled in Stardom way back in 2016. And, really, I would say sharpened her tools in Stardom. And, Mariah May talks about the fact that, she was a big fan of Toni Storm. Toni Storm was her idol, and she really followed in the footsteps of Toni Storm in going to Stardom. But in going to Stardom, that was how she met Mina Shirakawa and became close friends with her. So everything about this is such a long-term story, and how it all came together, how all of these elements fit together. And it is excellent to see that Toni Storm almost gets to return to her wrestling roots in getting to compete against one of Stardom's best in Mina Shirakawa.
My favorite part of all this is if you've ever watched Stardom, you see that all of the women literally beat the shit out of each other, and it's so fun to watch. And I'm pretty certain we're going to get that in this, and it's going to be really exciting.
Absolutely. We are also going to get to see, again, going back to the dream matches, Orange Cassidy, who also... I know, right? One of the
we talked about Will Ospreay being like the face of Forbidden Door, but like it's really Orange Cassidy.
It really is. I think that Orange Cassidy also very much fits the mold of Forbidden Door when you think about what Forbidden Door is, and you think about some of the biggest marquee matches the Forbidden Door has ever had. And you talk about that first year with Will Ospreay, like we talked about, but the opponent was Orange Cassidy. And it takes two to tango, and Orange Cassidy tore the house down. But last year, Orange Cassidy was defending the AEW International Championship in that incredible run he had with the belt. And in that match, it was a four-way between Orange Cassidy, AEW's own Katsuyori Shibata, Daniel Garcia, and Zack Sabre Jr.
How did I not remember this until now? Oh my God, it all comes full circle.
And so, which was an incredible matchup. I think one of the underrated matches on that card. And for Orange Cassidy now to have, it felt like in that match, it wasn't quite over between Orange and Zack Sabre Jr. And here we have brought it back full circle, one-on-one, finally. Orange Cassidy up against Zack Sabre Jr. at Forbidden Door. Aubrey, how are you feeling?
I am so stoked for this. Like, my favorite match I ever did was Bryan Danielson and Zack Sabre Jr. at Wrestle Dream last year. And I've had the opportunity to work with Zack a couple times since then, and even before then. And he's a phenomenal wrestler. Bryan will say himself, like, he does things that you just don't expect. Like, you could do all of the tape study in the world when you're faced in the ring with Zack Sabre Jr., and he'll still bend something into a pretzel shape that you've never even saw coming. You can't come up with a way to counter everything he has, because he'll figure out some new way to counter it in that exact moment. At the same time, Orange Cassidy is pretty much the most unpredictable person, because he shows up at the ring kind of apathetically, not really looking to wrestle anyway, but then will out wrestle literally everybody. And both of them, like Zach, we know is an incredible technical wrestler, but Orange Cassidy has a great amount of technical wrestling acumen to him. I think this is actually a phenomenal matchup. I think the two of them have their styles. Like there's like a Venn diagram. There's the Orange Cassidy and the Zack Sabre Jr., and they overlap, I think, more than people realize.
And, Orange Cassidy, this is obviously a very important matchup to him. But when you think about everything that's going on with Orange right now, and that he was just recently betrayed by his very close friends in Chris Statlander, he was betrayed by Trent.
Do we have to talk about them?
To think about the fact, though, that, that exists, right? And this is not an Orange Cassidy that we saw last year, who was very focused on retaining his international championship. This is an Orange Cassidy who's dealing with the loss of his best friends, and now has a very, very hungry Zack Sabre Jr. on his tail. And when you've got that shark in the water that can smell blood, I think that Zack Sabre Jr. Could potentially have his number here.
I think this is a good matchup. It's a great matchup. Everyone's going to have a phenomenal time watching this match. I'm stoked. I hope I get it, honestly.
I hope so too, actually. And also on the card, we've got in trios action, the formidable team of the AEW World Tag Team Champions, the EVPs, the Young Bucks, teaming with fellow Elite member, AEW Continental Champion Kazuchika Okada, to take on the very unlikely pairing of the Acclaimed and New Japan Pro Wrestling president, Hiroshi Tanahashi.
Dude.
I know, right? Like,
dude,
you see this on paper, and it's just like, how can this be? If
you had told me 3 years ago at the first Forbidden Door that this would eventually be a match we see, I would have told you were absolutely insane and there's no possible way.
And there's so many things about this match that are just, again, if you told this to me from just a couple years ago, I'd be like, no way. Like,
no.
The big thing being, of course, that Okada is representing All Elite Wrestling here. He's not representing New Japan Pro Wrestling. This is a man who is synonymous with New Japan Pro Wrestling for so long, but he represents AEW at this point. He is a part of the Elite. He is the AEW Continental Champion. He says bitch at every turn, and this is a man who has truly found his identity in AEW. And yet, even in doing so, he finds himself standing across the ring from one of his all-time greatest rivals in Hiroshi Tanahashi. Hiroshi Tanahashi, of course, teaming with the Acclaimed.
Oh, this is so good.
Like, we have a new daddy ass for a minute. Like, this is absolutely great.
Oh man, like I'm imagining, like, if they win, what the scissor party looks like and all of that. Just, yes. Oh my God, this is beautiful. I love this so much. Just with, oh my God.
And when you think about the run the Acclaimed have been on, and the fact that they just got a victory over the AEW World Tag Team Champions. Yeah, they won the Eliminator match. They have a future world title match. They have the Bucks number at this point. And so riding that wave of momentum, going up against the Bucks now in a trios match. And we're talking about the Acclaimed, who are 2/3 of the longest reigning AEW trios champs of all time. And against the Young Bucks, who are 2/3 of the only multi-time trios champions. And so when you think about these guys, everything going into this trios match here, this is a big deal. This is an important part of the card. And just knowing that Tanahashi and Okada get to once again square up. Two guys who, again, have so much history with each other. And it's all taken place outside of All Elite Wrestling. But for it to find its way into AEW, it's incredible.
This is phenomenal. I mean, also don't forget, when the Acclaimed won their tag titles, they were in New York. Sure, it was a different building, but we've seen how a New York fan base can come behind and really just bring these guys to the place that they're trying to get to. So there's just that X factor. I don't know if Matthew and Nicholas are actually factoring that in or not. How
can we watch this show, Aubrey?
Oh, man, we can watch the show in so many different places. You should, if you're able to, watch it live, AEWTix.com. You can watch it this Sunday, at the UBS Arena in Elmont, New York, Long Island, New York, whoever. If you're MJF, it's at Long Island. If you're anyone else, it's Elmont, New York. You can watch it on traditional pay-per-view. You can watch it on ppv.com. You can watch it on triller.tv. You can watch it on Bleacher Report. You can watch it on YouTube. There's so many different places to watch this pay-per-view. This is we think, the 29th pay-per-view we've ever done, and each one somehow gets better and better. If you are not watching this pay-per-view, you're wasting your time, because this is the best thing you could be doing this Sunday. And we've got so much more to talk about coming up on AEW Unrestricted.
AEW Unrestricted. We're talking about Forbidden Door, which during the break decided to do a count, because we were going back to the beginning of the show. We were talking about what number pay-per-view this was. And I didn't necessarily want to agree with certainty, because there was a chance it could have been wrong, but we did it a count. Aubrey Edwards, this is the 28th pay-per-view.
Correct. This is the 28th pay-per-view. Yes. I just wanted to, it doesn't matter what number it was. I just want to point out, I knew a stat that you didn't. I thought I knew a stat that you didn't. There you go. But now we both know that this is the 28th pay-per-view in AEW history. And it's very likely, based on everything we've talked about so far, going to be the absolute best one so far.
Yeah. I think look, we've got so much more to talk about on this card. This is Forbidden Door. It is live. It is this Sunday. AEWTix.com. You want to be there in person, get those tickets on Long Island, excuse me. And the reason I bring up Long Island is because you can't talk about an event on Long Island without talking about a man who made his return at the last pay-per-view, the 27th pay-per-view apparently.
Hey.
But the former AEW World Champion, Maxwell Jacob Friedman, is back in AEW, and he is back on Long Island, UBS Arena. I once told this man that UBS Arena belongs to MJF. When you really think about the fact that this is an arena that opened in 2021, and AEW has run this venue more than anyone outside of
the Islanders.
Outside of the Islanders. And so when you think about how AEW has run this venue as much as we have, and the fact is the one man who's been the poster child for every one of those events has been Maxwell Jacob Friedman, MJF. And here we are again. You couldn't have Forbidden Door on Long Island without MJF on the card. And he is going one-on-one with one of the best, greatest talents out of CMLL, Hechicero, a man who has recently formed an alliance with the Cage of Agony of Brian Cage and the Gates of Agony. And Hechicero really making a name for himself in AEW, and now finds himself going one-on-one with not just MJF, but all of the people of Long Island.
I think at one point it was described that like MJF returning to UBS Arena is a lot like Bret Hart going back to Canada. Like, it does not matter what he's done. He receives a hero's welcome. Like, that is when everyone likes. I don't know if Hechicero knows what he's walking into. Like,
right.
It's unless you're there, which you should be there live, AEWTix.com. Unless you're there when MJF comes out in New York, it is. I don't think you can imagine it, like how much he is seen as like a hero. And especially after everything he went through with the last year, defending his title, you know, historic reign, and then taking all this time off to just literally heal and being injured. Like, we've seen him wrestle, I think, once since he came back.
Yeah, against Roosh.
And Roosh hits really freaking hard.
Yes.
So it's not like Max is really in a spot where he's at his best. Like, sure, we've got the people of New York behind him, but is he physically where he was the last time we were in New York? I don't know. I think Hechicero's got a really interesting scenario he's walking into.
And it's always an interesting scenario with Max opposite anyone in UBS Arena or just on Long Island, period, because we did Nassau Coliseum back for
Correct.
World's End. But nonetheless, it's always interesting, right? Because when you think about Max going up against Wardlow, being face-to-face, and Wardlow being an extreme fan favorite at that point, but not against Max on Long Island. When you heard Max, of course, do his big band performance on Long Island, and Jack Perry, who at the time, huge fan favorite, not on Long Island. And of course, then, going up against Samoa Joe for the world title. And granted, Samoa Joe did walk out with the title. Joe was one who knew how to overcome Max and the people of Long Island. And so that's not to say that it's not to say he's unbeatable in this environment. And I think Hechicero, if anybody could find a way to defeat MJF on Long Island. Like I said, it's his arena. This arena belongs to him. And Hechicero is going to be in for a fight, but I think that he has been proving time and time again in his time in AEW, in some of the battles he's had in AEW, getting in the ring with some of the best that AEW has to offer. I think he definitely has something to prove to the AEW audience in being in there with somebody as high profile as Maxwell Jacob Friedman.
This is going to be great. I've had the opportunity to work with Hechicero a couple times as we've brought in luchadors from CMLL, and he's just such an incredible wrestler. He's quick, he's precise, he's hard-hitting, he's everything that I don't think Max is ready for. I'm really excited to watch this one.
Well, another match that a lot of people are looking forward to, including myself, is the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship on the line. The IWGP World Heavyweight Champion Jon Moxley defending against the man he defeated for the title, Tetsuya Naito. Naito, of course, looking to regain the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship, and to do it this time. Of course, Moxley did it on their turf when he won the title, Windy City Riot, just a few months ago. And to now be on, I would say, kind of equal turf, because this is a production of AEW New Japan Pro Wrestling. But, it's an environment that AEW has traditionally run. And for Moxley to be defending it again against Naito, we talk about so much being needed to be proven here, but I think that in this case, it is one of those, when you're going back to challenge the man who defeated you for a world championship, there is so much to prove, because you have to prove, as the defending champion, that my win was not a fluke. You have to prove that I deserve to hold the championship that I am walking around with. And thinking about the fact that Jon Moxley has to do this against the man who most recently held that title, I think is a challenge in itself. But knowing the prestige that surrounds Tetsuya Naito, and the fact that he is synonymous with New Japan Pro Wrestling, and synonymous with the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship, this again is the type of matchup where anything can happen, and I think Moxley is definitely going to be in for one of the biggest fights of his year.
We were lucky enough to see Naito wrestle last year. It was one of the matches I did where it was him and Sting and Darby versus Jericho and his crew. And so Naito, the last time he was in Forbidden Door, got a win in his column. So this isn't unknown territory for him, per se, right? Like, he's walking in, the fans already know who he is, the fans know what to expect. The legend of Naito is at least known. A lot of times we have guys coming in where it's the first time our fans are seeing with him, they're familiar. Moxley, however, is a living legend. He has the AEW fans behind him. He comes through the crowd. They cheer him constantly. But I feel like with everyone in the room, we all know that these are two legends coming together in the ring on, we can say, equal turf. I don't know who's walking out the champion, but I know that the mystique of the IWGP title will continue to be that, whether Naito holds it or whether Moxley holds it.
100% agree. But finally, title for title, our TBS champion, Mercedes Moné, will put her TBS championship on the line, and she's going to be defending it one-on-one against the New Japan Strong Women's Champion, Stephanie Vacker. The interesting thing about this match is that the New Japan Strong Women's Championship, of course, was born last spring, last May. And in a tournament to crown said champion, we saw 2 matches. And one of those matches actually saw Stephanie Vacker competing to potentially become the New Japan Strong Women's Champion. And, of course, Mercedes Moné competed as well, and Willow Nightingale competed. That tournament ended up being won by Willow Nightingale that night, and she walked away the first ever New Japan Strong Women's Champion. But that, of course, left a chip on the shoulder of one Mercedes Moné, because a lot would say that belt was created for her, that she felt like that belt was created for her, and she did not walk away with that championship. And that championship has since passed hands. It was held by Julia, and then later on it's now been held by Stephanie Vacker. And, of course, it has found its way full circle back to being in the crosshairs of Mercedes Moné, who just won the TBS championship. But apparently, that's not enough gold for Mercedes Moné, and she wants her hands on the New Japan Strong Women's Championship. But at the same time, Stephanie Vacker, I think, is one of the premier luchadoras in the world today. And what she brings to the table in any promotion she competes in, I think, always leaves an impression on people. And I think that for her to step into AEW and in her first ever AEW pay-per-view performance win the TBS championship, like, that's the thing Mercedes Moné just did, right? That was her first AEW match, and she won the TBS title. To then lose it on her first pay-per-view defense against somebody making their first pay-per-view appearance, that's a poetic story. That's something that even as a fan of Mercedes's, I would say I would very much be interested in seeing.
There's a lot at play here. Like you said, that there's, this title in theory was created for Mercedes, right? I feel like if Mercedes was presented with 1,000 different titles, it wouldn't matter, because this is the one that is in her crosshairs, because there's a story that is still to be told. And I feel like she's the kind of person, and I've been fortunate to work with her a couple times now at this point. She knows what she wants, and she gets it. And that is what Mercedes Moné is about. Like, she's just phenomenal. At the same time, my introduction to Stephanie was the same tournament you were talking about. I was watching one of the matches, and in the middle of it, I just say, how do I work with this girl? She's phenomenal. Like, she's an incredible champion. And could I see her being the face of TBS? Absolutely. If you see her wrestle just a little bit, you understand like how absolutely incredible she is. So both of these women potentially being the face of 2 different companies. Have we ever had a title for title in a women's division in AEW before?
No, we have not. We have had champions competing against each other, but knowing that it's title for title and that somebody has to walk away with 2 championships. Somebody will walk away with 2 championships. This is an incredible moment. This is good. History.
It's
guaranteed.
It's really
history
good.
is made here.
Oh man. It's one of those things where it's just, I'm so excited to see this match play out. I have no idea how it's going to go. And either way, I'm just going to be pleasantly surprised, because women's wrestling is the best it's ever been. And we're going to see an absolutely incredible match between both of these competitors.
I think we're going to see an incredible show between everybody on this show.
Hell yeah.
I am so excited to be a part of this night, to be there on this night. I know you are. I know that every time I get to see you get to call a high-profile match, I'm always like, that's my friend out there. I'm so excited for you. So I am looking forward to this, and I know you are too.
Oh, dude, I'm so stoked. I'm so stoked. And if you're not stoked, you should be, because there are still tickets available. AEWTix.com. Come to the pay-per-view if you are in the New York area or even remotely close. It is worth a drive. AEW pay-per-views are phenomenal, stellar, well worth the money. Like, we're practically giving them away. Like, you should just come to this thing. It's going to be great. So many incredible matches as we've profiled here. If you can't make it to New York this weekend, this Sunday, make sure you watch traditional pay-per-view, ppv.com, YouTube, Triller, Bleacher Report. There's all these different ways to watch it. Watch the action happen. Watch the history be made. Watch these incredible competitors from all over the world and all these different companies. Forbidden Door is just this wonderful celebration of wrestling. It doesn't matter who you work for or who you are representing. We all get to come together and just enjoy in our love of wrestling. And that's the thing I love most about Forbidden Door.
Yes, I agree. And don't forget, beyond Forbidden Door, keep checking out this podcast, AEW Unrestricted. Most of the time, we've got incredible guests on this show, and you can check out new episodes of the show every Thursday on our traditional podcast feeds. However you get your podcast, AEW Unrestricted is there. You can also watch our beautiful mugs right on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, the AEW Unrestricted YouTube channel. You can watch AEW Dynamite every Wednesday on TBS. You can watch AEW Rampage every Friday on TNT. AEW Collision every Saturday night on TNT. Ring of Honor is available on Honor Club, watchroh.com. But otherwise, this has been AEW Unrestricted. I'm Will Washington. She is Aubrey Edwards. We'll see you next time. Have a great day. Peace.